Hi there, so I'm back in the studio now, and towards the end of last year I was putting up an Instagram post where I was making a particular mark that I find really interesting and very useful, and I was doing it in a particular way, and I had quite a lot of people messaging me about how I was making this mark and what I was doing. It's nothing clever, it's not clever or a hack or anything like that or any of those kind of things, but it's just I was making this mark, I enjoy making it, I find it useful, and I had quite a few people messaging me saying, you know, what are you doing? How are you doing that? So that's literally all I'm going to do today is I'll show you what I was doing. I was just working with one of these little cheap as anything brushes. They call them decorating brushes, but quite frankly, I don't think it's even good enough for decorating. It's really cheap and cheerful. But to use this brush how I want it, I find that the bristles are a bit long, and I find that with a lot of brushes. I quite like using decorating brushes and things like that because they make a nice big bold mark. And to get brushes that make those sorts of marks in an art shop, you go into an art shop and you look at these big beautiful brushes, and they're really expensive. And for me, I actually enjoy being quite rough with my materials. I'm pretty aggressive with them and scrub them around, and I don't try and look after them. But that's the way I paint. I'm trying to make fairly aggressive marks. Now, if you've got expensive materials, that can actually be something that holds you back. Now, I'm not saying at all that you shouldn't use expensive materials or high quality materials if that's what you want to do. Of course, that's absolutely fine. I'm never going to say don't do this or don't do that. But for what I'm using this brush for, I'm thinking something that is expensive, maybe it's cost £50 or £100 even. It may not be getting the mark that I actually want because it's holding me back. The fact that I know I really need to look after this thing because it cost a lot of money, I've got to look after it. So is it getting me the mark that I want? Would I actually be better off getting something cheap that I'm not at all precious about, and I can adapt and get it to work and get the mark that I want to make? So this isn't really about doing what I'm about to do to this brush. It's about thinking about your materials and how the materials that you use need to create the mark that you're looking for. Now, if that's an expensive material, that's fine. But if it's something cheap, doesn't have that preciousness about it, and you can scruff it about and be a bit more aggressive with it, then maybe that's the thing you need. So I'm just going to adapt this brush, make the mark that I want it to. So the mark I'm talking about is this big, bold brush mark here, where I've deliberately used quite thick paint, quite heavy body paint, and retained the brush marks and made a mark that keeps the brush marks so that when they're dry, when these brush marks are dry, I can work over them and actually get some of the thinner paint to go into all the little grooves between the brush marks. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that big, bold brush mark. What I'm using for that is a brush like this. Now, this is the same as this one. It's been slightly more used, and all I've done is cut the bristles off with a pair of scissors because I wanted to have this kind of stubby, very stubby, short bristles so I can make this big, deep brush mark. It's almost like a stencil brush. And I bought a cheap stencil brush just to have a look at it because this is for doing this kind of stenciling, sort of stippling, stenciling. And it's not far off the sort of mark. It might actually work, so I'll try something like that. So you could look for things like this. We've got really nice short bristles on them. But decorating brushes like this one and this one, because that's what they're designed for, they're designed to hold a lot of paint and make a soft, almost brush mark free kind of mark. You don't, when you're doing paintwork for painting your woodwork or something, you don't want to show the brush marks, but I do. So these longer brush marks are not what I want. I don't want soft bristles. I want stiff, wiry bristles like this so I can retain this brush mark. So this isn't some clever painting hack that's going to transform your work. All it is about finding the tool, and if you got one, then making the tool that provides you with the mark that you want. So this is what I want to achieve. I want to have this really stubby brush that I can use. And you see these bristles are they're too soft, and they're not going to get me that deep brush mark that I want because they're too flexible. So I'm going to make them shorter and stubbier, and all I'm going to do is take a pair of scissors to them, which is kind of why you want to use cheap brushes, because you don't want to be doing this to expensive brushes, because you know, why would you do that? Why would you you don't want to be doing this to an expensive brush, do you? And I don't care if it's a bit uneven, that doesn't really matter. Just go backwards and forwards, tidy it up a little bit. There you go, and I can get rid of all that. And there you go. Now I've got this short, stubby brush that will make those nice, big, bold brush marks, and will retain the brush marks when the paint dries, which is really what I'm looking for. Like I said, I put this post up on Instagram towards the end of last year where I was just hacking away at this brush, and people were messaging me saying, what the hell are you doing? And why are you doing that? So now you know, it's just about getting the tool for making the mark that you want. It doesn't have to be this, it could be anything. You're thinking about the sorts of marks you want to make and how you can actually go about getting a tool, finding a tool, or even making a tool that provides you with that mark. Okay, that was it. If you're interested in finding out more about how I paint, how I teach, check out the link that's in the description to the video, and I'll see you soon.